With Israeli settler violence at a 20-year high, is the occupied West Bank being lost? Despite condemnation even by the U.S. ambassador to Israel, settler attacks continue, many say with the backing of Israeli leaders. In the shadow of the war on Gaza and the 20-point peace plan, are violent settlers cementing Israel's occupation to fully destroy Palestine? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is the occupied West Bank. While the White House celebrates the UN Security Council's approval of the 20-point Gaza Peace Plan, illegal Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank have stepped up their war on Palestinians. President Trump has said he will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank, but last month, the UN recorded 264 violent settler attacks there, from burning mosques, cars, and olive trees, to the brutal beatings of civilians and farmers. So to what end are these settlers acting with impunity? And could any peace in Gaza really succeed if violence in the occupied West Bank is left to fester? Here's a look.
A new wave of fear washes over Palestinians as the occupied West Bank finds itself the target of increasing Israeli violence. Mobs of illegal Israeli settlers and expansionists, often armed and frequently masked, are targeting homes, villages, vehicles, farms, people and buildings. Last week, one mosque in Deir Istiya in the occupied West Bank was torched, ransacked and defaced with graffiti.
Upon arriving at the mosque at dawn, I found the mosque's door broken, fires set inside, and racist slogans painted by groups of settlers.
So outrageous was the attack that even the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, condemned it, in a rare instance of Israeli self-criticism from high office. Elsewhere, a sneak attack involving masked men saw delivery trucks and vehicles entering a factory set ablaze.
Their entry into the company wasn't random, it was organized, and they had a fully organized tactic for how to carry out the burning.
Houses have also been raided, destroyed, even bulldozed in some instances. And many olive groves, their trees a major source of income and industry for many farmers in the area, have been razed.
Since last October, the ministry has documented the destruction of more than 15,000 olive trees as part of a systematic policy aimed at uprooting farmers and disrupting their livelihoods, which negatively impacts food security, local production, economic stability, and causes the deterioration of living conditions of thousands of Palestinian families.
Despite the increasing violence, many government officials in Israel tacitly back the attacks. Around 700,000 Jewish settlers live in East Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank, in areas that Palestinians want as territory for a future state. According to international law, Israeli settlements in such territory are illegal. This has not prevented the construction of new major roads and housing that is intended to forever split occupied West Bank territory into fragments, preventing cohesive and continuous land on which to build a Palestinian state. Half a world away, a UN vote on a draft resolution adopted Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza.
The result of the voting is as follows: 13 votes in favor, 0 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2803, 2025.
The plan would see the creation of a transitional governance body and a committee that would oversee Gaza's reconstruction, and an international stabilization force made up from personnel from multiple countries, and a newly trained and vetted Palestinian police force, not under the control of Hamas. In the face of mounting international outrage, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called upon Israeli law enforcement to deal with so-called rioters in the occupied West Bank, referring to them as extremists and saying they are a minority that do not represent Israel. but with Israel already staunchly opposed to future Palestinian statehood, and their homes, families and livelihoods subjected to firebombs, destruction and attacks, it's doubtful that the UN vote will cause Palestinians in the occupied West Bank to sleep any more soundly.
Well, joining me now to look further at settler violence, as well as the latest developments in Gaza, are from Hebron, in the occupied West Bank, founder of Youth Against Settlements, Issa Amro. From Tel Aviv, political analyst and contributor to Haaretz, Akiva Eldar. And from Chicago, education coordinator at the American Muslims for Palestine, Tarek Khalil. Thank you all so much for being with me. Tarek, I'll start with you. This massive increase in occupied West Bank settler violence, it really became most dramatic after Trump's Gaza plan was accepted. Do you see that as correlation or just coincidence, as the trajectory was already upward?
Yes, thank you for having me. It's certainly not causation. You've had violence that reached record highs since the second intifada before October 7th. I think approximately 700 to 800 Palestinians were killed up until that point in the West Bank. So settler violence is not something that is an aberration. It is built into the state system. It is an extension of state violence. In fact, settler violence is state violence. It is an extension of Israel's apartheid system. And it works hand in hand with every element within the government apparatus, from the executive to the legislature to the judicial. Even the High Court of Justice does not issue heavy penalties to those that are in fact prosecuted. And about less than 4% of the settlers that do commit these violent acts are in fact prosecuted.
Right.
So any statement that can come from the Israeli Prime Minister, for example, condemning this violence, it is an act of separating itself from an essential aspect of Israel's grand military occupation strategy, and settlements and the settler enterprise plays a significant role in that. So what we see now is a higher intensification of that kind of violence, but it's certainly not an aberration. It is built into the system. It's by design.
Not an aberration, but Issa, do you see it, the uptick at all, connected to this Gaza Peace Plan? And let me ask you as well, Issa, because you are closest to the violence, are you at all shocked at the heights of settler violence now? Because their actions are truly deplorable. These are people who don't just hesitate to assault civilians. I mean, they've also been recorded beating and killing animals. These are incredibly dangerous people, and the world is really turning a blind eye.
To be very honest, the Israeli National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, is from Hebron, and his hero is Baruch Goldstein, who killed the Palestinians in the Ibrahimi Mosque in 1994. And Itamar Ben-Gvir himself was the lawyer of the price tag and helped to youth and Lahava terrorists. So he was their lawyer, and now he became the Israeli National Security Minister. Smotrich, who is the founder of a very infamous settler organization called the Rakavim, its main mandate is to remove Palestinians from Area C and destroy their structures and destroy their homes, their schools, and their mosques and their life. So, and he is a minister inside the Israeli Defense Ministry and the Finance Minister. He and his government located a lot of money. Itamar Ben-Gvir gave out in the last 2 years at least 300,000 rifles. The majority of these rifles came from the United States, unfortunately. And before October 7th, in February 2023, we all saw how the Israeli settlers, backed up by Israeli soldiers, attacked Hawara near Nablus. And Smotrich said, "Whip out Hawara." So it's a state violence. It's part of the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian from their land, from their villages, and from their towns. It's part of the annexation plan of the Israeli government to remove the Palestinians from their land and annex the maximum land with a minimum number of Palestinians. Since October 7th until now, no one settler was arrested. No one was indicted. It means that the Israeli soldiers, the Israeli settlers, and the Israeli police even, they work hand in hand and they coordinate the attacks on the Palestinian people. And it happened to me many times that settlers attacked me and soldiers backed them up and prevented me even from filing complaints. So they all work together. Settlers in an army uniform, they attack Palestinians. Soldiers in civilian uniform, they attack Palestinians. So they all work together now openly without any doubt that they are going on with their terrorists. What is the connection with Gaza is that with a ceasefire, before the ceasefire, everybody on earth was covering the genocide in Gaza. Now, after the fake ceasefire, there is no real ceasefire. The Israeli government every day, and the Israeli military violate the ceasefire agreement. They kill Palestinians in Gaza. They destroy houses. They destroy neighborhoods, and they don't fulfill their agreements, their commitments in the agreement. But more media in the West Bank is covering what's going on. We are talking about hundreds and thousands of attacks in the West Bank. We call it pogroms every day. This is what's going on in the West Bank without accountability, with impunity, with financial support from the Israeli finance ministry to those terrorist settlers.
Indeed, and they subsidize the building of the settlements themselves as well. But Akiva, let me ask you, Benjamin Netanyahu is actually quite okay with the settlers, but now he says these violent ones are a minority. Should there be a differentiation? Or is he just trying to make it look like he is paying some attention to the extreme and, as I said, deplorable actions of these responsible for the most recent violence?
Well, let's assume that he is absolutely correct, and it's a small minority. He said it's also people who are coming from outside. The settlers are angels, but there are radical fanatics who come from outside. Well, Israel, as they are bragging about, Israel has the best military in the Middle East. How come that the Israeli army is not able to arrest? How come that there is a total impunity? How come that Netanyahu didn't say anything when the Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, decided this was his first decision when he took office to make a clear distinction between Palestinian and Israeli terrorists, that the military system can use administrative detention against Palestinians who are suspected with terrorism, but not when it comes to Israeli terrorists. The problem is that Netanyahu and his ministers refuse even to use the title Jewish terrorists. You can find quotes when they say, when they're asked in the Israeli media, when the Israeli media wakes up and is willing to report about what's happening in the Wild West. It's not just the West Bank. I think it's the Wild West of America in the 19th century. They say, well, there is no such a thing as Jewish terrorism. Just let's assume that Palestinian terrorists would enter Jewish settlements and put in fire houses, cars, will shoot live ammunition. The women and children are killed.
Right.
And there is an impunity. I mean, in the best case, as you said, Andrea, they turn a blind eye. In the worst case, as my colleague just said, they are financing it.
State-sponsored terrorism. Akiva, let me ask you this though quickly: is Israel's empowering of these people and an ideology this violent also putting Israel at risk?
Absolutely. I think that we are getting more and more isolated. Actually, this is also a kind of a punishment, so it's not exactly impunity to the settlers. The immigration from Israel to the settlements is decreasing. People don't want to live there. People don't want to live in a war zone. And this is actually a war zone, and it will be worse than Gaza, because in Gaza there are no Jewish settlers. I wanted to say Jewish terrorists. There is no points of friction between Arabs and Jews, where in the West Bank, you cannot draw any line, no green line and no yellow line like we're trying to do in Gaza. They are, if you look at the map, they live, those settlers. Our friend just spoke from Hebron. The Jews live in the heart of Hebron.
Yeah. And Tarek,
can I add to that?
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I disagree with the premise of that question. It's not the state encouraging that ideology. That is the state's ideology. The settler enterprise and the settlers in the West Bank are designed to fulfill. It is in the service of the state itself. The apartheid regime it requires the establishment of these settlements because it is based on the notion of Jewish supremacy. This is based on the foundational ideology of the state itself, Zionism, conquest of land, ingathering of the exiles, bringing in as many Jews as possible into that land, and dispossessing the native population. The settlers contribute to that heavily, so it is an essential component of that. We need to make that clear. We need to understand what the West Bank is, especially since the Oslo period. It has been separated into three main areas: areas A, B, and C. Area C is under full Israeli control. That encompasses 60% of the West Bank, and Israel has complete control over those areas. Areas A and B are non-contiguous areas. Area A, the PA has control over about 18% of the West Bank, but even there, Israel can go in daily, the Israeli military, and can facilitate arrests. They can invade homes, demolish property, whatever it needs to do. So Israel is the military occupier of the West Bank, and as the military occupier, it has obligations under international law, and Israel is not following that.
Absolutely.
These distinctions between outposts and what are known as settlements that are sanctioned by the government have no distinction whatsoever under international law. They're all illegal. It does not negate from their illegality. So the distinction that Netanyahu is making is a farce one. It makes no sense and has no legal grounding.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then, Tarek, because I want to move on to the UN Security Council approving then the 20-point peace plan, if you want to call it a peace plan. And I should mention that China and Russia both abstained, saying that it's far too vague. But there are now a lot of concerns that the yellow line that Israel is supposed to retreat to could actually become part of a permanent division of the Gaza Strip. I mean, does that sound like the most likely ambition of this peace plan then to you?
Well, okay. I mean, obviously, we don't characterize it as a peace plan. This is a plan to end the daily bombardment in Gaza. So it's a plan to give the Palestinians some level of respite, but it's not to give them complete justice. So we need to get that part out of the way. This new vision by Israel obviously works within international constraints. Israel would love to just kick out every single resident in Gaza and annex the land and incorporate it into Israel proper. That will be the ultimate vision. But obviously there are international constraints. It cannot do that. So it will treat it as tantamount to what is known as the apartheid wall in the West Bank. The apartheid wall was established to engulf certain settlements and to expand the Jerusalem municipality and dispossess Palestinians, especially in East Jerusalem, as we see a lot of house demolitions, especially in my town of Sidwan, where it's become heavily Judaized. This is the policy now being played out in Gaza, where, okay, if we can move the Palestinians east of that yellow line, we can incorporate more land because we can fulfill the Zionist vision of incorporating more land with as minimal amount of Palestinians as possible. And that's the new type of vision that you can see here. But it's still part and parcel of the same grand design.
Yeah.
It's what can Israel get away with, and what can the U.S. continue to support in order for it to achieve its maximalist gains. And I like the word that you use, division, because it is not a border. Israel has never recognized its eastern boundary or its western boundary. If you ask any member of the Israeli government, what are the borders of Israel? None of them can give you a concrete answer.
Okay, let me ask Issa then, because with that division, the concerns beyond that are that the area that would remain under occupation would actually receive the reconstruction funds for those companies willing to profit, forming effectively kind of an East-West Berlin scenario. I mean, Tarek mentioned the wall in a sense. So is that your fear as well?
I go back to 1948 when the Green Line was established. Israel didn't stop even till the Green Line. They went after the Green Line and they occupied the West Bank and Gaza on the 1967. For me, yes, Israel is with the yellow line. They are trying to conquer the land and they try to steal more Palestinian land, and they will not stop. Because if you ask the majority of Israeli politicians now, they want to see Israel from the river to the river, and a few of them they say from the river to the sea. This is the current ideology in Israel. They don't want to see the Palestinians in the land of Palestine from the river to the sea. So in the West Bank itself, they are dividing the West Banks to ghettos. With building an E1 area, it means that the southern part of the West Bank will be completely disconnected from the northern part of the West Bank. And with the 1,000 movement barriers in the West Bank now, the Palestinians, they live inside ghettos, inside islands, all disconnected from each other. And Israel will take all the land to the time that they push Palestinians out. And they even now working on the policy of they don't evict you physically, but they make it impossible for you to stay. So you will have no job, you don't feel safe, you have no social life, you have no enough services. Israeli occupation is controlling water, is controlling our electricity as Palestinians, is controlling the import, the export, the transport. They are controlling everything, and they are doing their best that Palestinians will not have even basic rights to stay and remain in their homes and in their villages. With Gaza, for sure, they will continue destroying houses. They want to rebuild settlements, and many settlers who are part of Likud and part of Otzma Yehudit and with Smotrich parties, with the political parties, they support the settlements to be rebuilt on Gaza. This is not a peace plan. This is what we want as Palestinians. We want a real sovereignty over our land according to the international law. We want the Palestinians be the main negotiator. We are the ones who can decide for our land, who can decide for our future. Until now, we are not. We are not. They don't treat us as a nation.
Issa.
We want as Palestinians to be treated as a nation with equal rights and with freedom and justice.
Very quickly, Akiva, fine. I mean, if Netanyahu and Israelis, for the most part, don't want a Palestinian state, what do they want after seeing what the status quo actually brought? I mean, they obviously don't want a one-state solution. So are they happy with a state of war under occupation?
Well, I think that with all due respect, I think that Tarek gave them too much credit. It's not about ideology. It's about power. It's about money. It's about doing business and staying in power. With Netanyahu, you need to add to this in order to stay free from prison. They have nothing to do with ideology, these people. They are a bunch of, I would say, violent gangsters that hijacked the entire country. They don't care about the Supreme Court. They just want to stay in power. And if tomorrow the price that they will have to pay in foreign currency will be higher than accepting a two-state solution, they will not hesitate. They will do this. So I am afraid that I don't have enough fingers to count the number of UN resolutions and statements of American presidents accepting the idea of a two-state solution and a Palestinian state. The big mistake was that Arafat did not insist on full freezing of settlements, of moratorium, of all settlement building, because this is the bigger paradox. And I heard it also from American negotiators, that peace process and expanding the settlements project is the ultimate oxymoron.
Okay. Akiva, that will actually have to be the final word for this edition of the Newsmakers. So much more to talk about, but the clock is against us, as always. So I'd like to thank sincerely all three of my panelists so much for being with us. And thanks to our viewers as well. Remember, you can follow us on social media. And do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and comment. I am Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.